So I don't need to learn on non-binary gender identity from the West. That's exactly why I said you're following the path of the West even when it comes to this. Because pronouns are an imperative, or let's say a critical discussion in the West, somehow Bharat, which is still dealing with basic issues, will now sit and discuss kaun se pronoun use kiye jayenge. This is the imposition of elite concerns on a still underdeveloped country. First submission. Second, assuming that you still want to insist that this discussion is very important in the context of Bharat, which has several issues to deal with, fine. I will say, I will not subscribe to anything that has come from United States or France unless I apply my Bharatiya filters to it, even in the context of pronouns. France itself is rejecting this garbage that is coming out of the United States, saying we don't want this. Your humanities are the den of poison. We don't want that nonsense from the United States. And therefore, I would only say, respect for gender identities and respect for non-conventional gender identities is not something where there can be any negotiation. I agree. I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm just hoping that this doesn't translate to weaponization of certain identities and policing of speech. On this I will have very clear positions. Again, I am not from the Jordan Peterson school of thought. I'm making it very clear. Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, these are all people who come from a point of the supremacy of the Judeo-Abrahamic Western civilization. I don't. So my position doesn't draw from them. My position only says respect, sensitivity, and originality. That's it. Now, whatever this translates to. If someone comes and tells me in person, Mr. Sai Deepak, this is the pronoun with which I would prefer to be addressed, I'm not going to sit and fight with that person. Because I have Sai Deepak as a name. Someone calls me Deepak, I'd say Deepak is for people in the family. You call me only Sai, nothing else. If I get to say that, someone says, this is how I would prefer to be addressed, I don't have a problem. However, if the right of self-determination of gender translates to pixelation of certain biological realities and endangers others, I will apply the mischief rule there. I'll give you an example. In certain law schools in this country now, it has become a fad to have gender-free hostels, where apparently a boy identifies himself as a woman and lives with his girlfriend. Says, I will now simply use the power of self-determination to achieve my goals. Was this the purpose of self-determination? Is this how the argument was supposed to be in the first place? It was meant to protect a vulnerable group which is constantly found on traffic signals, which does not get employment because they are seen, they are looked down upon, or they are pushed into human trafficking and the worst of activities possible because nobody else is willing to give them employment. Considerations which are meant to protect such vulnerable groups are now hijacked by the welfare and the affluent. Tell me if this is not the textbook example of woke garbage. Of course it is. The elites appropriating a discussion which is meant to protect vulnerable people. I would say how shameless and insensitive of such people. How opportunist this is. So, I am not going to take a position which is different from the United States only because I don't want to take a position which is different from the United States. I have my very clear own independent reasons for having a different position. Protect vulnerable groups. Make sure that they're represented in public spaces. No problems. If I need a politician who's from the third gender versus a politician who's perhaps from the binary gender but who's corrupt, who will I go with? That gender doesn't make a difference to me. Right? What is the traditional Indian approach to this or Bharatiya approach to this? Situation, circumstance, time, position, which is Desha, Kala, Samay. Don't approach any of these issues in vacuum. What is dharma is never to be answered in vacuum without the boundary conditions being defined. Similarly, whether the use of a particular pronoun is right or wrong in a given context will be dependent on the context. Give me the situation, I'll give you a clearer answer. But in general, I'm going to say, I will not import first world considerations in a country which is still third world, unfortunately. And my considerations will be cultural in nature, will be rooted in my traditions and my philosophy. Period.